Welcome to FM Scout and to a brand new Football Manager video. My name is Luke, my own channel is LS Plays FM, and I'm delighted to be back today as a guest specialist to bring to you this FM21 video where we're going to be looking at the best mental attributes you should focus on for your players in game. Now, before we do get into this video here today, if you do enjoy it, make sure to drop a like down onto it, and if you're not already, get yourself subscribed to FM Scout and ring that notification bell. If you want to come over and check out my own channel and my FM21 content, you'll find a link down to it in the description. Maybe come on over and drop a sub as well. But without any further ado, let's get into this video and check out the best mental attributes you should focus on for your players in FM21. Here we are then in FM21, and we're going straight away to a player profile. Before we get into exactly what the best attributes you should focus on are, I'm just going to run through exactly what mental attributes do in FM21 and just what they actually are as well, so you kind of have a good understanding. Of course, when you think of football and the way in which football works and football players, there's obviously three main areas to a footballer's game. You have the technical side, in other words, how good on the ball players are and how good they are doing certain tasks with it. Things such as passing, shooting, heading, tackling, all of that type of stuff. You'd have the physical side of the game, things such as how quick a player is, how slow, how strong, how good in the air, how fit they are, that type of stuff. And then finally we have the mental sides, which is what we're going to focus on here today. Basically the brains when it comes to football, how intelligent a football player is on the pitch. An example of a mental attribute would be something along the lines of work rate, how much they are willing to give and how hard they're willing to work in order to perform to the best of their ability. Something as well such as leadership, how good of a leader is the player. Now, with the video itself though, what we're going to do is we're going to look at three main areas. We're going to look at the spine of the pitch, your centre backs, your central midfielders. We're going to look at then the wide areas, wide midfielders, inverted wingers, that type of stuff, and then also the attacking areas, your strikers and your attacking midfielders. What we're going to do with those three areas, we're going to look at key attributes you should focus on, ones you should maybe avoid where possible. We're going to look at some good examples of players and some bad examples as well to give you a good idea of what you should be looking out for. Now, first of all, we're going to begin with the spine. When it comes to the spine of the pitch and central defenders, arguably one of the most intelligent players really around in the game has to be Giorgio Chiellini. You can see here just how amazing he is when it comes to the mental side of his game. So many high level figures in the attribute list there. But when it comes to being a central defender, there are arguably really three key areas you should focus on. The first one, without a doubt, is anticipation. Anticipation being, in other words, how well players can spot danger and when they actually know when to move in, maybe to try and make an interception, or if they need to move position, that type of stuff. You also have decision making. Decisions when it comes to defenders is a massive deal because, of course, if a player has poor decision making, they're not going to be very good. They're going to be making lots of the wrong choices. And also concentration. If a player has low concentration, it means they're going to be more likely to be more error prone, which of course you do not want. Other things to be aware of as well when it comes to defenders is positioning. Of course it is. Positioning, quite simply, how well a player will be positioned on the pitch. Other things which can be important, aggression can be quite a useful thing, and bravery, but they are only useful if the player has good decision making and good composure. Without those two, if a player is just really aggressive and really brave, they're going to be throwing themselves into challenges and probably getting themselves sent off a lot and maybe being more of a liability than it is worth. So Chiellini here is a very good example of a good mental attributed player. If you want an example of a bad player, Ramiro Funes Mori over at Villarreal is probably quite a good example. On paper, he looks quite decent. Decent technicals, decent physicals, and he's got some high mental attributes. But I mentioned only a few seconds ago about having high aggression and high bravery and low decision making and low composure. Because of the fact he's lacking those two things, he's also lacking concentration. Number one, he's going to get lots of cards, whether they be yellow or red, maybe go and break some players' legs, who knows. And number two, because he lacks concentration and decision making, he's going to be making countless errors at the back. So on paper, he looks quite good, but he just isn't worth it, realistically speaking. Now that's the centre backs covered, but when we come to the central midfielders, there's a few other areas you want to focus on. If we go along here and have a look at some central midfielders, I have N'Golo Kante selected here. He's a great example of a really intelligent midfield player. He most certainly is. You can see just how good his mental attributes are here in the game. There's a few areas with central midfielders which overlap with central defenders. Anticipation is a key one. As I mentioned with the defenders, it just affects so much of the game, both going forward and also defensively. So anticipation is a key one to be aware of. Decision making, again, is really important, as of course is positioning, but a couple of other areas to be aware of when it comes to midfielder. Off the ball is really vital because it affects how good a player is when they do not have the ball at their feet, how well they're going to get themselves into the right areas, they're going to make the right decisions, that type of stuff. So off the ball is really useful. And if you're using a more playmaker style of player, of course Kante isn't that type of player, but vision can be vital if you've got a playmaker, because vision quite simply is how well a player can spot a pass. So those areas can be really useful, but again, anticipation in my opinion is up there as one of the most important ones you should focus on with your players. Kante, of course, is a great example when it comes to mental players. He's just fantastic in so many different areas, can play so many different roles, as you can see on here. A good example of a bad central midfielder is Jan Songo. On paper, a bit like Funes Mori, this guy looks very, very decent. He's a ball midfielder. He's got good tackling, good marking. His physical's all right. He's not great. Of course, he is in League 2. But you look at some of his mentals, he's got a lot of 20s, a lot of 18s and 19s. You're going to think, oh, wow, fantastic player. But much like Funes Mori, he has low concentration, low composure, and low decision making. A player like this is just going to cost you games. He's going to make mistakes and he's going to get himself sent off so many times. So many players are going to get their legs broken by a player like this. So avoid players like this where possible, because yes, they may look good on paper, but they will just cost you games. Now, that of course is the spine of the pitch. We're now going to move to sort of wider areas. We're going to have a look at wingers, inside forwards, those types of players, and what is good for players in those positions. Now, if I go back to our shortlist, we're going to start off with Sadio Mane, of course, the Liverpool left winger, a fantastic player, one of the best wingers arguably in world football. He's so good both with scoring goals and assisting them. He most certainly is. And you look at his mentals, he's got a lot of good areas. When it comes to players on the wing, whether they be wingers or inside forwards or inverted wingers or even playmakers out there on the flanks, off the ball, much like with midfielders, is key. Composure as well, and anticipation. Having flair can be quite useful as well. You can see it highlighted on the screen. Flair can be useful for this because it affects how skillful and tricky a player is. It doesn't really matter. The ones you want though are, again, anticipation. It's so vital. It really, really is. Composure, because it affects when players get into goal scoring positions. Are they going to bottle it, or are they going to keep their nerve and put the ball in the back of the net and in the off the ball? Because again, it affects how good they are at making runs, at their decision making when it comes to pushing forward and timing their runs and things like that. So Mane, a great example of a wide man in Football Manager. An example of a bad player is Adama Traore. Yes, this man physically is an absolute monster. The Wolves right winger, also strictly speaking right wing back when he gets played there. His technicals are decent, he has great dribbling, but his mentals are so lacking. His anticipation is so low. His decision making is so low. His concentration as well. Even his off the ball is very, very poor. While yes, on paper, he's going to be able to beat players for fun. Once he's beaten a player, he will then more often than not make the wrong decision, whether it be in terms of taking a shot when he shouldn't or trying to cross it when he should maybe go for goal himself. So try to avoid players like this where possible. Well, yes, maybe if you're lower down divisions, high physicals may work, but as he gets higher and higher up the leagues and comes up against better defenders, a player like Traore is just going to struggle because he's going to be making the wrong decision over and over again. So that is the wide areas of the pitch, but when we come to the more attacking areas, your strikers, your attacking midfielders, there's a few other things to be aware of. We're going to first look at Roberto Fermino, the Liverpool striker, and can also play as an attacking midfielder. He's a great example to look at here because he covers both areas. He's so good mentally. He's such a well-rounded player. When it comes to being a more attack-minded player, whether it be an attacking midfielder or a striker, there's a few areas when it comes to mentals you need to keep in mind. Anticipation, again, the one which affects how well players can predict and react to situations going on around them. It is massively important for strikers because, of course, they need to be aware of what's going around them so they know if they can make a good run, if they can pounce on mistakes by defenders, all of that type of stuff. Your composure, again, much like with the wingers and inside forwards, strikers need composure because if they get the ball in the box, you need them to actually be able to finish it and not completely mess it up. You have your decision making, of course. Strikers and attacking midfielders have to be able to make the right decisions, whether it's passing the ball, shooting into the back of the net. anything along those lines. And finally, off the ball as well is a massive one to keep in mind for strikers, because they have to be willing to make the runs and time the runs and everything along those lines. Now, of course, Bobby Firmino is a great example. Again, he can play in both positions really well. He would be able to suit it both to a T. But when it comes to a bad example of a striker type player or more attacking player, it would fall to Mario Balotelli. Now, yes, on paper, he has some decent attributes such as composure, such as anticipation and off the ball. But he lacks decision making, so he's going to make the wrong decision more often than not. Probably quite a greedy player, I would expect in Balotelli. And another area, which I haven't really spoken about too much, would be work rate. Although, yes, on paper, Balotelli may make a good striker because he's able to finish and he's able to keep his head because he's composed. If he's got low work rate like he has here and low positioning, you're more often than not going to find he's not going to be in the right areas because of the fact he's either too lazy to get up the pitch or back up the pitch, or he's just not going to be in the right areas because his positioning is quite so low. So again, although he may be very well composed, a player this lazy is just going to be a liability for you, both going forwards and also for tracking back and helping with you in defensive situations. That right there, though, is the final area we're going to focus on. We've looked at now the spine, the wide areas and the attacking areas. And if you focus on those mentals that we've looked at today, it will really help with your game management. By far, in my opinion, the best mental to focus on in all the positions has to be anticipation. Every role really across the pitch needs anticipation, because a player, regardless of whether they play on the pitch, has to be able to predict and react to situations going on around them. So if you focus on players with good anticipation, you'll find it'll probably help you out in game. But guys, overall, that brings this video here to a close. I really hope you find it to be useful and can help implement some of these mental attributes in terms of focus on finding them in your games. If you did enjoy it, make sure to drop a like down onto the video here today. And of course, if you're not already, get yourself subscribed to FMSCOUT and ring that notification bell. And as I mentioned earlier on, if you want to check out my own channel, you can use the link down in the description. Come on over, drop a sub to my channel and check out the content over there as well. But thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you again next time.